Hi there, Graham Vincent, Violinmaker and musician. Scrapers, I wanted to show you how to use and sharpen a scraper. Scrapers are absolutely wonderful tools. You can use them to take really delicate fine shavings, which can be against the grain if need be, which you need to be able to do in some situations. So you should be able to make these lovely little fine shavings like this. Or if you choose to use it more aggressively, you should be able to produce coarser shavings like that. So in order to do that, you have to be able to sharpen the scraper properly. It's a very simple tool. It's a piece of steel. And the secret to making this work is that you have to be able to sharpen the edge as square as possible. And when I say as square as possible, I mean it's got to come to a sharp edge. So the way that I do this, which is probably the best starting point, is I actually, it's a bit of a peculiar setup, but I tend to put my file, because I use a file rather than using a stone or anything, I put my file in the vise, but against a piece of wood. So let me see if I bring this in a bit closer so you can see exactly what's going on here. So the file is held in the vise there. This piece of wood is set slightly lower than this. So now if I put the scraper against the vise cheek and push backwards and forwards, the edge is cut nice and square, but the swarf, the burr, doesn't build up in the corner and doesn't rub against the edge there, because there's this gap between the scraper and that surface. So in this case, I'm going to sharpen two edges. One edge, the other edge, and then what I tend to do is use the same file to just lightly run along the face to take that burr off. And you notice I'm pushing into the face so that the burr tends to get sort of wiped off. Okay, so there we have that straight off the file. What I then do is I normally put it down on the edge of the bench, and you need your, what's it called? Burnisher. And also, in addition to the burnisher, I like to use a piece of wax. Okay, so what you're going to do now is you are going to, and you can either put wax on the burnisher or just on the surface of the scraper. But what you're going to do is you are going to work this edge to turn it over gently. And so you need to start reasonably gently and then apply a bit more pressure. Whoops. Apply a bit more pressure. And so you can imagine that that edge is being pushed out and folded that way. Do the same there. You've got 4 edges. So now we've just sharpened up the edge and sort of rolled it up. So it'd be like two little horns pointing upwards. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, and again, a bit of lubrication on this edge. I'm now going to roll those back outwards. So again, I start fairly gently and then a bit harder. And then on the other face. And that's your scraper sharpened. Let me just show you it in operation. Now, doing that, it does a couple of things. It obviously creates a nice hooked blade. Oh, look at that. See, that's cutting beautifully now. Let me just move this in so you can actually see it. See, again, I can cut fairly gently, or I can really go in a bit harder. But the act of sort of rolling that edge out and then bringing it back round again does something in addition to actually producing the hook. It actually does the same thing that the peening operation on old scythes and so on used to do. You are effectively work hardening the cutting edge. So you're making it a lot harder and more able to hold the edge for a period of time than if you didn't do that. So that's an important part of it as well. So that's the simple truth about sharpening. I can't even speak English today. About sharpening scrapers. The same thing applies even if you have curiously shaped ones. They're done in much the same way. Secret is to a nice. Use a file if you want, use a stone if you want, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to produce a good square edge so that corner, it's as hard a corner as possible, and then you're rolling it over and then you're bringing it back out. In terms of operation, they're pretty easy to use, and I suggest just trial and error really. What you tend to do is you hold it like that, with your thumbs nearer the edge which you're using, and you just put a slight curve in it, so that the actual cutting is happening more or less in the middle. But it doesn't have to be much tension that you put into it, and you've got 4 edges to choose from, of course. And whilst the rules of grain direction and so on are to an extent the same as if you're planing, you can at times ignore that, if that makes sense. So yeah, sharpen up a scraper and have a go, really. I would say if you go at it too wildly, this edge gets really hot and you will burn your thumbs. So, allow them to cool off, or switch it over occasionally so that the hot bit is switched over the top and you've got a fresh cool bit down the bottom. Of course, you can also move your thumb sort of that way as well. So you tend to end up using probably sort of about that much really. If you're just using it as a flat surface scraper, you tend to use that area, then that area, then you swap it around like that one, and then that one, and then it's time to resharpen it. You can use the corners for various operations. As I say, all different shapes of scrapers are ever so useful. I mean, at the moment I'm working on just cleaning up a violin, and obviously this little egg-shaped scraper is perfect for sort of doing this area coming up to the edge work. Anyway, that's a fairly short, simple video. Hope you enjoy it. Talk to you soon. Look after yourself, folks. Cheers. Bye-bye.